Hello, everyone, and welcome to my channel. This is Supporting Special Needs Students in General Education Classrooms. I am sharing with you all a training video that will be viewed by general education teachers who will be receiving students with special needs and disabilities in their classes for inclusionary/IEP purposes. Today, we are diving into a topic that's incredibly important to every educator: how to support students with special needs in general education classrooms. Whether you're a new teacher or a seasoned veteran, navigating inclusion can feel overwhelming at times. But here's the good news: you don't have to be a special education expert to make a big difference. In this video, we'll cover what inclusion really means, how to create a supportive classroom environment, strategies for differentiation, ways to collaborate with specialists, and tools you can use to help your students thrive. This video is connected with social justice and its advocacy for supporting students with disabilities in general education classrooms. Let's get started. Understanding inclusion. First, let's talk about what inclusion actually means. Inclusion is more than just placing students with disabilities in general education classrooms. It's about creating an environment, a learning environment, where all students feel welcome, supported, and valued. Federal laws like the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act require schools to provide a free, appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment. This is mandated by law. That often means students with special needs are placed in general education settings with support. In order to meet free and appropriate public education and least restrictive environment mandates, more students with disabilities are being placed in inclusive environments. To improve the academic achievement of these students, there has been a rise in research into the options for inclusive settings, student outcomes, and the best practices for collaborations between general and special education teachers. For the purposes of this video, inclusive environments refers to classrooms where students with and without disabilities learn together. So now we're going to talk about building a supportive classroom environment. A successful inclusive classroom starts with a positive and accepting classroom culture. General education teachers being proactive has a tremendous impact on the success of special education students who are relying on them to set the tone of classroom up for success of every student from day one. Set the tone for your students by modeling respect, empathy, and patience. Additionally, use language that affirms all learners. Celebrate differences as strengths. Incorporate classroom norms that promote kindness and collaboration. Such, for example, PBIS, which stands for Positive Behavior Intervention Systems. Acknowledge and give specific compliments to students that behave as expected. For example, include community building activities that allow students to share their interests, cultures, and learning styles. Review classroom rules and expectations, especially in regards to how to treat others. Make sure your classroom routines are consistent and predictable. This helps all students. but especially those who rely on structure to feel safe and focused. Additionally, the use of visual schedules can be a huge help for assisting students with special needs in mainstream classrooms. Give clear directions that are short and straight to the point, that do not have a lot of fluff and extra information. And lastly, established procedures can go a long way. Students of all backgrounds need clear routines and clear procedures that students know what's going to occur next in the classroom and what to expect. Additionally, consider flexible seating. Seat placement is a crucial element to student success in general, but especially to students with disabilities. Placing the student near a student who will make them feel comfortable as well as support their success is ideal. Consider designating areas to be quiet zones for students who may need a sensory break or who may need to detach from the larger group to recenter themselves. Use a check in system such as morning meetings or one on one conversations. Stay connected to students and responsive to student needs. An inclusive classroom is not just about physical access, it's about belonging. Thank you, everyone, for hanging in there with me. So, now we're going to talk about our next section. Our next section is going to discuss the differentiation and practice regarding inclusion and supporting mainstreaming students with special needs in mainstream classrooms. Differentiation is one of the most powerful tools for supporting diverse learners. And no, it doesn't mean creating 25 different lesson plans every day. It often means offering multiple ways for students to access content, engage in the lesson, as well as demonstrating their understanding. Differentiation is a tremendous tool to help students of all backgrounds and all educational levels and abilities meet grade level standards as well as meeting the standards through which will make them be eligible to advance and to meet the goals of their IEP as well as their Section 504 plan. To begin with differentiation, we're going to start with small changes. We're going to offer choices. Many times, students do well with different choices. Many times, giving students a different option on how to proceed with completing their work or a different way on how to problem solve the answer to get to the answer is a tremendous tool to help students with differentiation and obtaining grade level standards as well as meeting IEP goals. Another option when giving students choices may be the use of visual aids, the use of sentence starters, as well as video tools to help students, graphic organizers. These are just multiple tools that can be used to assist students with differentiation, as well as scaffolding. Remember to check the IEP and the Section 504 plan to see if students have accommodations for technology such as calculators or extra time for completing their test. Allow extra time for students who are struggling to complete their assignments or modify assignments as needed. When differentiating, think about four different areas: the content of which we're teaching, the process of how we're going to teach it, the product of what the students will be learning, and the learning environment, where and with whom students will be working with. In your lesson plan, make sure that you create contingencies and strategies on how to support special needs students in their learning environment with how you're teaching the content, the process of how you're teaching it, and the students' goals. Sometimes we need to break down the goal into smaller chunks. That can be a tremendous differentiation tool with helping students meet grade level standards as well as meet their IEP goal. Remember, differentiation is not about lowering expectations, it's about giving every student access to rigorous content that works for them, and it's also another word for scaffolding. Thank you everyone for hanging in there with me.
So in our
So
next
now we're going to
section,
talk about
we are
our
now going to
next
discuss
section.
collaboration.
Our next section is going to
Collaboration is
discuss the
essential
differentiation
for
and practice
assisting
regarding
students with
inclusion
special needs
and supporting
and
mainstreaming students with special needs
in
in
general
mainstream
education
classrooms.
It is essential
Differentiation
that the
is
general
one of the
education
most
teacher
powerful
be
tools for
proactive
supporting
and reach
diverse
out to
learners.
special education teachers,
And no,
parents,
it
and
doesn't
support
mean
staff
creating
on how to
25 different
best
lesson
work
plans
with
every
a
day.
student with special needs
It
and how to
often means
ensure
offering
their
multiple
success
ways for
in
students to
mainstreaming in the
access
general education
content,
classroom.
engage in the lesson,
Additionally,
as well as
when
demonstrating
collaborating
their
with teachers,
understanding.
it's essential to be
Differentiation is
open-minded,
a
patient,
tremendous tool
take
to
notes,
help students of
as
all
well as
backgrounds
be
and all
open to
educational
constructive
levels and
criticism,
abilities
as well
meet
as
grade
creating
level
a
standards
plan of
as well
action
as
with your
meeting
special education
the
teachers,
standards for which
colleagues,
will make
support
them
staff, as
be
well
eligible
as
to advance and to
specialists.
meet the goals of their
Remember,
IEP
you are
as well
not in
as
this
their
alone.
Section 504
Collaboration
plan.
is essential when supporting students with special needs. General education teachers, special education teachers, paraprofessionals, therapists, and families are all a part of
To begin
a
with differentiation, we're going to
special
start with
education
small
students
changes.
support
We're going to offer
support team.
choices. Many
They are
times,
needed and their
students do
input is
well
highly
with different
valuable
choices.
in how to
Many
best serve
times,
the student with
giving
special
students a
needs,
different
how to
option
help
on
them
how to
meet their
proceed with
IEP
completing
goals
their work,
or the Section
or
504
a different
goals.
way on how to
The first
problem
thing
solve
a
the
general education
answer
teacher
to
should
get to
do
the answer
is
is
meet
a
with the
tremendous
special
tool to
education
help
teacher
students
directly and
with
ask them
differentiation in
the
obtaining
necessary
grade
information
level
in
standards
regards
as well as meeting
to
IEP
what
goals.
makes their student successful in their class. What is the
Another
student with
option
special
when giving
needs
students
strengths
choices
and
may be
weaknesses?
the use of visual aids, the use
Also,
of
make sure
sentence
that you
starters,
have a
as
copy of
well
the
as
student that you will be
video
supporting,
tools to help students,
IEP at a glance,
graphic
or a copy of
organizers.
their
These
504.
are just multiple tools
Remember
that
to
can be
take
used to
notes and
assist
to ask
students
lots of
with
questions.
differentiation,
The
as
goal
well
is
as
to be
scaffolding.
proactive
Remember to check the
versus
IEP and the
reactive.
Section 504
Reach
plan
out to
to see
parents
if students have
prior
accommodations
to the student's
for
arrival.
technology such as
Inform the
calculators
parent of your
or extra time
expectations
for
and
completing
ask
their
how to support
test.
the student who will be in
Allow
your
extra
class
time
meet
for
their
students
goals,
who are
how
struggling
to
to
support
complete
them
their
mentally,
assignments
emotionally, as
or
well as
modify
physically.
assignments as needed.
Keep lines of communication open with your school support
When
staff, those
differentiating,
or
think about four different
the
areas: the
paraprofessionals,
content of which we're
paraeducators,
teaching,
as
the
well
process of
as
how we're going to
speech
teach it,
therapists, school
the product
psychologists,
of what the students will
nurses,
be learning, and
as well
the
as
learning environment,
principals.
where
Do not
and
hesitate to
with
ask
whom
questions.
students will be
Do not
working with.
hesitate to request input,
In your
constructive
lesson
criticism,
plan, make
strategies,
sure
and
that you
strategizing
create
or clarification on
contingencies,
a student's
and
IEP
strategies
or
on
their
how to
504
support
plan.
special needs students
Remember, consistency and
in their
shared
learning environment
expectations across
with
the
how
IEP
you're
teams
teaching the content,
makes a huge difference
the
in the
process of how
success of
you're
students with
teaching it,
special needs who are
and the students'
mainstreaming in general
goals.
education classrooms.
Sometimes we need to break down the goal into smaller chunks. That can be a tremendous differentiation tool with helping students meet grade level standards
Hello,
as well
everyone.
as meet their IEP
So,
goal.
in our next section, we are now going to discuss collaboration.
Remember,
Collaboration is
differentiation
essential
is not
for
about lowering
assisting
expectations.
students with
It's
special
about
needs
giving every student
and
access to rigorous content
mainstreaming
that
in
works
general education
for
classrooms.
them.
It
And
is
it's also another word
essential
for
that the general
scaffolding.
education teacher be proactive and reach out to special education teachers.
Hello. So now in this section, we're going to discuss behavior and emotional support. Remember, all behavior is communication. Once again, all behavior is communication. For those who forget a third time, all behavior is communication. If a student is acting out, it often means that they are trying to tell you something, especially if the student is what is considered to be nonverbal. They may be feeling overwhelmed, frustrated, confusion. They may be feeling under the weather. They may be hungry. They may simply just be struggling with their communication. It is imperative that general education teachers who are receiving students with special needs in their classrooms to be proactive and to be reaching out to students with special needs to build rapport with them, to have a clear sense of dialogue and communication, to build trust, to build a relationship that can be relied upon, that can be discussed, and that can be, if the student is not feeling well, the general education teacher can use their past experiences and past conversations with the student to kind of infer what the student is going through and what the student needs. We're going to start by being proactive, and we're going to be proactive with teaching and reinforcing clear expectations of students' behavior in our classrooms. We're going to use positive behavior supports. For example, specific praise. We're going to give students praise on the specific things that they are doing, such as, for example, if a student is sitting in their chair, we're going to say, "Thank you, Emily, for sitting quietly in your chair." We're not going to focus on undesirable behavior. We're going to focus on and we're going to comment on and praise the behavior that we want to see. We're going to offer incentives, a reward system, such as uh, a sticker board, or a stamp checker. Whichever the reward system that you have in place to help students stay on task and to help students remain behaving as in regards of classroom expectations, whatever works for you as a teacher, make sure that you reteach and review your expectation system frequently. If students are struggling to meet classroom expectations of behavior, reach out to parents, reach out to the special education teacher, reach out to support staff such as paraeducators, speech therapists, or additionally, the school psychologist. If the student is receiving RBT therapy, reach out to the RBT therapist for additional support. Remember, everyone is a team working together to best support the special education student who is in the general education class taking general education classes. Additionally, we're going to focus on consistent routines. Students with special needs and all students need classrooms that have consistent routines and predictable consequences. Next to your classroom routines should be the classroom consequences for students who are struggling to meet behavior expectations. Create a safe place where students feel open and are able to feel trusted to reach out to their teacher if they feel unsafe, if they are struggling mentally or emotionally in the classroom. Always remember the goal is to be proactive. Frequently check in with the students who you'll be supporting and ask them how you're doing. Create a emotional regulation chart or a visual aid where students who are nonverbal or students who struggle in their communication can point to a picture that can show and that can demonstrate how a student is feeling. Remember, consistent routines and frequently reviewing expectations and reviewing classroom procedures will help mitigate unwanted behaviors. Additionally, when building relationships, get to know your students' triggers and their motivations. Use calm, non confrontational language. Always assume positive intent when interacting with students. When problems arise, use restorative conversations, use positive behavior and positive redirection. Always comment on what students are doing that is expected of them and use positive words. Help students who are currently struggling with their emotional regulation use visual aids to express themselves. Model appropriate behavior as well as review expectations. Consider the past consider a student's past history with teachers and educators, and perhaps maybe doing an exercise or doing an assignment or a seating area could be a trigger for a student. Consider whether or not the student is being overloaded and being overwhelmed with expectations, being overwhelmed with requests. Give students frequent breaks. Create a break schedule for students or a reward system where students can request for a break. Remember, unclear expectations or inconsistent consequences all impact behavior. Stay flexible. Stay positive. Always assume positive intent and keep the focus on helping students emotionally regulate themselves and not punishing misbehaviors. Remember, the teacher sets the tone of the classroom. In conclusion, inclusion is not about being perfect. It is about being proactive, intentional, direct, compassionate, and openness to learn. We as teachers do not have all the answers. We make mistakes. The important thing is that we learn from our mistakes. We are open to learn. We want to help our students and we want our students to be successful, no matter of their abilities or disabilities. Remember, it is important to build relationships with your colleagues, parents, and students. Always be proactive in your communication with parents and be proactive with your communication with your colleagues. Stay curious and open to constructive criticism. Remember that your efforts matter. Every single strategy that you try and every single conversation that you have with your colleagues, parents, and students help create a classroom where all students are expected to succeed, as well as a safe environment where students can be themselves. General education teachers have responsibility in being proactive and have a tremendous weight on their shoulders in the implementation of assisting special education teachers with their special education students and meeting their IEP goals. If this video gave you something new to think about it, please give it a like, share it with a fellow teacher, and subscribe for more videos like this. I'd love to hear from you, your thoughts, and how you support your students with special needs in your general education classroom. Let's learn from each other in the comments below. Thank you. We'll see you next time.